Hello, I'm Steve Sokol, and I'm the president of the American Council on Germany, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Kaffeepause. Each week, we check in with a Berlin-based journalist to talk about the emerging stories and breaking news. Welcome to today's Kaffeepause, What's a Buzz in Berlin, and I'm very much looking forward to talking with Young Leader alumnus Matthias Deiß, who serves as the deputy head of ARD's Berlin studio. Matthias, herzlich willkommen, and as ever, it is good to see you.
Hallo, herzlich willkommen. Danke für die Einladung. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, Matthias, I'm always happy to talk with you, and it's funny because it's been about 5 months since you and I spoke. We had the opportunity to have the very last Kaffeepause of 2021 in late December. And of course, a lot has happened since then. The new government in Germany has become installed. There have been 3 state elections in Germany as well. And of course, overarching, the war in Ukraine has broken out. When we talked in December, we talked about some of the tensions with Russia over the military buildup on the border with Ukraine. But I don't think either of us imagined that by the end of February, there would be a hot war like the one that we're seeing, and that's been going on for nearly 3 months at this point. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to German and European politics, and I thought we could start by talking a little bit about the current government and the situation that it's in. Of course, this is sort of a unique government, the Ampelkoalition, led by the Social Democrats, but with the Greens and Free Democrats as well. And the Social Democrats seem to be facing some pretty significant challenges at the moment, both in terms of how the Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, is seen in the public, but also in terms of some of the infighting between some of the cabinet members. And of course, the way in which the Social Democrats are jockeying with the other parties making up the coalition, the Greens and the Free Democrats, for power, for influence, and for recognition. So I guess sort of the big question for me is, how much trouble are the Social Democrats in, and how would you rate their performance as the head of government right now?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the 6 months you mentioned. Yeah, and no matter if you agree with the politics of Olaf Scholz or not, I think in one point he's absolutely right, and there's no discussion. His word he invented, the Zeitenwende, describes very good what has happened in the last 6 months. It's a different time now. He came in power in the first week of December, and from day one, this new government and this new chancellor is under huge pressure, and there's not one day without a big crisis in his government so far. He started the big wave of Corona in Germany with the huge biggest numbers ever, and then directly after this came the war, and he's really struggling. He's really struggling because normally every new chancellor has some time to find himself and to form a government. In Germany, the formation of the government, of a new government, doesn't take really part before the election, but after. And of course, it's a new team, and this new team has to find itself on the job. And you see a lot of differences between the coalition partners, and the questions are so big and the pressure is so big that inside the government there's a lot of tension at the moment, a lot of discussion, and there's this very small group who is leading this government: the chancellor, the vice chancellor Habeck from the Green, the finance minister Lindner, a foreign minister Annalena Baerbock, and the party leaders. I think they found together as a group, but that's almost it. So this inner circle has find a way to trust themselves, a good way of internal communication. But below that level, you already have open discussions, and this is quite special for a new government. Normally, you have a great start. Everybody is happy to be in government at first, and this happiness covers a lot of differences in the first. And this is not the case. There's a lot of discussion inside the government parties. Is Olaf Scholz leading correctly? Is it correct not to go to Ukraine? Is it not correct to bring a lot of heavy weapons into the Ukraine? So a lot of really big questions which are burdening the start of the government. And if you look at the first three elections in German federal states, the first was a very small one, but now last week's 8 days ago, North Rhine-Westphalia, so by far the biggest federal state in Germany, this election is called like a small federal election, kleine Bundestagswahl. And this was really a disaster for the Social Democrats. It was also a disaster for Olaf Scholz because he put a lot of personal weight inside this election. He was on almost every placard. Can you please translate?
Every poster or billboard.
Every poster, statewide. He was a lot of on a lot of election stages, and of course, he had a big hope that after winning the federal election to regain this big federal state. This hasn't happened. So the time of victory for the Social Democrats is clearly over. The Conservatives are clearly back. They reformed again. They regrouped themselves under Friedrich Merz, and this is a small summary of the situation I see at the moment. But I'm sure we have. I don't want to talk too long at the beginning because I'm sure you will have a lot of questions, and we can work point by point.
Well, and Matthias, you've already put a lot out there, and I think you've set the stage perfectly because I think even when we spoke in December, we talked about the Lernkurve, or the learning curve, of this new government in the constellation of the parties that were coming together, but also the individuals who were taking on their various roles. And as you said, and I think as all of our viewers recognize and can understand, these have been challenging times for any new government to come into power and into office. And so there have been lots of issues to deal with. But it's interesting to hear you talk about just how much the leading party is struggling at the moment. And so, I'd like to maybe pick up where you left off, namely talking briefly about the 3 state elections and sort of their relevance on the national level. Of course, the Social Democrats did very well in the first of the 3 elections in the Saarland, but in Schleswig-Holstein and in North Rhine-Westphalia, the Social Democrats did not do well. It was the Christian Democrats that fared well, but particularly in North Rhine-Westphalia, the real winners were the Greens, who managed to nearly triple their share of the vote. How much do you think that the poor showing for the Social Democrats in Schleswig-Holstein and in North Rhine-Westphalia was due to sort of the impression of what Olaf Scholz and the Social Democrats are doing at the national level, rather than sort of a failure at the local level or success at the local level by the Christian Democrats?
Yeah, I think learning curve you stated out is the perfect answer to these questions, because there's a new chancellor. He was, in my point of view, he wasn't elected because the Germans liked him that much, but the other candidates in the election had such a catastrophic performance in the election campaign that they thought, oh, Olaf Scholz, well, yeah, he's boring, but he's a professional. So they put their trust in him and said he will do the best. And I think Olaf Scholz, the way I see him in the first months, misinterpreted this vote, because we have very challenging times. He is a new chancellor, and he's no learning curve at all. From day one, he's saying, I know everything. I'm doing everything right. It's kind of a very arrogant habitus in a time. At first, you're the new one. Nobody who's new in a job knows everything. But then we have so big, and then you have the vice chancellor and the foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock and Robert Habeck. They are really doing an excellent job in communication, and they are doing the opposite of Olaf Scholz. They say, we cannot know all the answers. We will have to find a way in this difficult times. We have to do one step after the other. We have to muddle ourselves through. We don't know when we will be independent from Russian gas, but we are doing all the best to do this as fast as we can. And Olaf Scholz is the only one who say, I know everything. I don't need any advice from outside. And I think the Germans have a good feeling that there's a difference because of his outside appearance, of this knowing everything, and his acting. And he's not acting like he has a clear course. He is acting like every politician. He has to find a way, step by step. Other social democrats, is my party following me? What are the coalition partners saying? What is Ukraine saying? What is our NATO partner saying? I don't criticize this, but it doesn't fit with his way of communication, and I see and he's losing the trust he had at the federal election. He's losing it step by step because he has no learning curve, and this is, I think, his biggest problem at the moment.
So it is interesting, because if you think back about sort of the past few months, there was really a period where people were asking, where's Olaf, right? Like, where's Waldo? Because he was sort of conspicuous through his absence and not taking a position. Meanwhile, as you said, Annalena Baerbock and Robert Habeck have been far more visible. They've been in the news almost constantly. And what I found striking is that they, as Greens, who one often thinks of as being particularly ideological, have really been incredibly pragmatic in terms of trying to solve problems and address the problems. They might not have all the answers at once, but they certainly seem to be looking for solutions to these problems at a time when the chancellor seems to be somewhat absent or somewhat underrepresented. As a result of that, I think it was interesting to see that the latest opinion polls by Forschungsgruppe Wahlen actually put the Greens ahead of the Social Democrats for the first time since July of last year. So how is this playing out in that dynamic between the Social Democrats and the Greens? Do you think that the Greens are emerging as a stronger party and potentially in the near future really a leading party?
Yeah, I don't see that's the right time for this discussion. I have a political magazine which is broadcasted every Sunday, and yesterday There was the Minister for Labor in my show, and I was speaking to him and to a lot of other politicians in the last week after the election of North Rhine-Westphalia. The Social Democrats are not too nervous at the moment because they think, well, we are the leading, we have the chancellor now, we are in government, we have 3.5 years to come. And so, yeah, the start is different, but we shouldn't overestimate these problems at the moment. And they really hope that Olaf Scholz, with this way he's leading at the moment, could have some problems now, but if you look into the future, maybe in 6 months the war's over. This is a hope of a lot of social democrats. Then it might turn out that Olaf Scholz did the right thing, like stand against the pressure, not to be too much on the side of the Ukraine, I think we don't know yet the turnout, and so he's making a bet. And his bet is, I have always been like this, that people know me, I'm boring, but I don't overreact in difficult situations. You can count on me. And I think this is what his communication experts tell him every day. Stay like you are. And it's a bet. It can turn out to be the right. At the moment, it doesn't look that way. And at the moment, we have other members of government which are performing better. And I think that's the answer for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Matthias. Matthias, a little earlier you were talking about this sort of inner circle. You know, some key individuals from different parties, but also some you know, incredible trust that exists between Scholz and Habeck and Lindner and Baerbock, who in many senses are trying to hold together the coalition, but also hold together some of the divisions within each of their respective parties. And one of our viewers, someone in Colorado actually, is asking if you could describe some of the different factions or viewpoints within the SPD specifically. And he goes on to ask whether the differences are ideological or whether they're related to the regions that are represented, and who some of the key individuals are that we should be watching.
Yeah, let's do a little excursus on the history of the Social Democrats in Germany. The oldest party in Germany, 150 years, I think. And for themselves, not for me, but for themselves, they have the impression that they were kind of always in this history on the right side of history, you know. They were hunted down by the Nazis, for example. The clear opponents of them were thrown in jail out of the Reichstag because they did opposition to the Nazis. And then after the war, the Ostpolitik, Willy Brandt, winning the Freedom Nobel Prize for saying there is Russia, there is a Cold War, but we have to come together somehow. And this is like the blood which flows through every Social Democrat, this heaviness of 150 years. And now they have always felt close to Russia. They were always a little skeptical towards NATO, towards United States. And so for them, for parts of them, it's really heavy now to break with Russia. Gerhard Schröder, the former chancellor, is one of Putin's biggest lobbyists. He's still working for Rosneft. He's might work for Gazprom, at the advisory board. So there's a big tension towards Russia. And although Olaf Scholz said this is a Zeitenwende, there has to be a clear break with Russia, and there's no going back to the relations we wanted and we had. There is a part of the Social Democrats, and I think this is a question, there's a fraction, there's a left wing in the Social Democrats, which is really hanging on the course the party was going the last 50 years or so, and they are asking the questions within the party. Is it really right to break with Russia? Why are we not talking with Putin? Where's the diplomacy? Where is Olaf Scholz could be the next Freedom Nobel Prize winner within the Social Democrats? Should we really bring weapons to the Ukraine? And to be honest, Olaf Scholz is under suspicion of the Germans and of the media. Is he listening to them a little bit? Because he's saying from day one of the war, full solidarity with Russia, with Ukraine. But if you look what weapons are going into the Ukraine from Germany, the Ukrainian government asks us every day, is this full solidarity? We don't think so. And of course, these voices are heard in Germany. And these voices raise questions within Germans, of course.
So how does someone like Ralf Mützenich fit into this tableau that you're painting for us?
Yeah, perfect example. He's one of them who was really struggling. He lost weight, really. He every day turns slimmer because he cannot overthrow this history of the SPD, of the Social Democrats. It's really making him sick. You see it. And he's one of the peace fraction, and now his chancellor didn't inform him that this government wants to spend 1 billion euros extra money for the German Bundeswehr, for the army. And this is nothing what this person like Rolf Mützenich, it's completely against his whole political life. And this is the heaviness of this Zeitenwende. From 1 hour to the other, everything changed. And a lot of politicians are going into politics because they have they are idealists and they want to change the world into the idea they have, and this is a problem now. The idea didn't work out.
So, Matthias, sticking with the Social Democrats for another minute before we go on to some of the other parties, there have been some I guess some sort of crises around some of the ministers from the Social Democratic Party as well. Karl Lauterbach, the health minister, who was brought in by popular demand, but was not necessarily the first choice of Olaf Scholz, has not been doing so well in managing the pandemic. At the same time, the defense minister, Christina Lambrecht, has been getting lots and lots of criticism. Some of it has been more substantive than others. And there's been sort of a new sort of crisis brewing with Minister Lambrecht and her colleague Nancy Faeser, who's the Minister of the Interior. That just came up sort of over the weekend, where they were sort of pointing the fingers at each other. How stable do you think the various ministries are, or do you think that there could be some, shakeup, if you will, of the ministries, particularly the SPD ministries, in the coming weeks and months, particularly given how the Social Democrats are faring in the polls?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wouldn't rely too much on the polls because we don't have very important new elections coming up. There's one more in Lower Saxony in October, I think. So we have some time, and then it's done for the year. But there are Lamprecht, the minister for the Bundeswehr. She's really under a lot of pressure, and let's not go too deeply in why she is minister, but they needed a woman. They needed somebody from her federal state, and so they came to the name Christine Lamprecht, and there she was. And then there was the war suddenly, and we need a top professional for the job. And a lot of people raise the question: is she the right woman for this phase? And she did a lot of mistakes. She's under a lot of pressure, and I don't know if she will survive this phase. And this I think at the moment would be the only situation to shake up and reform the government, because it's a problem for a chancellor after 6 months to already have to give the sign. I have to reorganize. I did some bad choices. So and it's the SPD ministers. It's not the Greens, it's not the Liberals. He chose them. So it would be seen as a mistake of Olaf Scholz. And you mentioned also Karl Lauterbach. For the members of the Kaffeepause who don't know him, he's a crazy professor, wild hair. He's the German Minister for Health. He studied at Harvard. He's reading the whole night, but he's not the best organizator for a big ministry and a big health crisis where we have now. So he knows everything about Corona because he's such an expert. And he would win any quiz against anybody if it comes to questions about details, facts, or studies about Corona. But in a top crisis, you need a top organizer, and he isn't that. And so at the morning, he comes out of his office and says to the TV cameras and to the journalist, I have a new decision. We are doing it like this and this. And in the evening, he comes again and said, "No, I was wrong. I have to change my opinion. I changed my opinion now. We are doing this and this." And this is also a problem. But the Corona cases are going down that much that the public focus is changing. Everybody's looking at the moment on Ukraine. Corona is a little bit out of our minds. Could come again in autumn when the numbers, the cases, the infections rise up again. But I think at the moment Karl Lauterbach is a little bit out of focus, and that's a good thing for him at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, Matthias, this sort of goes to those examples of waning trust and waning confidence that the public has in government, but also that other government members have in each other. And I want to sort of expand our focus a little bit and come back to something that you said earlier, that Olaf Scholz had declared full solidarity with Ukraine, and that there have been a number of questions about how much Germany is actually doing to support Ukraine. Some of that criticism has come from within the party and within government, but it's also come from the opposition. And just over the weekend, I thought it was interesting, I guess it was last night on Anna Will, the Christian Democratic politician, Bundestag member Roderich Kiesewetter actually called into question whether Scholz really wants Ukraine to win the war, because he felt that Germany is not doing nearly enough. Kiesewetter, of course, is a retired Bundeswehr officer, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the military and to conflict. How is Kiesewetter's statement sort of playing out? And then let's talk a little bit about the Christian Democrats, because there's an interesting narrative there as well.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, the problem at the moment is the Germans don't, or they think they don't know what Olaf Scholz is really thinking. Does he want, or does we want really full solidarity with the Ukraine? Are we trying to muggle ourselves through this crisis, not come into the focus of Putin, not trying to stay out of this war, which is a way you can choose, you know? I mean, you're very far away from Russia and the nuclear bombs. We are 5 minutes away from the nuclear bomb. Mm-hmm. So you can raise these questions, and then you can go to the public and say we are in a special situation, and therefore I choose this path for my country. But if you say full solidarity with the Ukraine, which he did, and you don't act like it, then it's of course easy for the opposition to stick the finger into this difference and to win from this situation. It's the job of us journalists to see this difference and state the right questions. And it's for the Germans, they of course also see it, and they have question marks, and they want answers from their new government, and they don't get the answers at the moment, and this is a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think the opposition is, the conservatives are doing a good job at the moment. Friedrich Merz is lucky because he's also new in power, or in the job, and now he's collected this win of the two elections, and so he's stable in office now, I would say, and it's kind of a very good start for him. And I have, from many talks I have with Ampel members, especially the FDP, they hoped that the conservatives would have a very heavy phase of deconstruction, internal conflict. What's that?
There's something going on outside my building. So a big truck honking a big horn.
Yeah, internal conflicts, you know, and as a very famous social democrat said once, opposition is rubbish, is mist. And this didn't happen. They are regrouped, they are united again. They have now 2 victories in elections, and they are back. So they are a strong opposition at the moment. And this is, of course, for a government, not a good thing.
So, Matthias, I'm happy that you brought up Friedrich Merz and sort of the direction that the Christian Democrats are going in at the moment, because I did want to ask you about that. I mean, obviously, as you said, strong showing in 2 out of the 3 regional elections that have been held so far this year. But Friedrich Merz, when he took over as the leader of the Christian Democrats, really had some work cut out for him in terms of redefining the party, repositioning the party. Is that work done with these 2 victories, or does more need to be done? And how much is happening in that regard?
Of course, it's not over at all, but Friedrich Merz was a loser. he lost against Angela Merkel. He lost 2 times when the Conservatives were choosing their new party leader after Angela Merkel. And so this was really his, I think it was his last chance, the very last chance. When there was nobody else, he came in power. So this was really not the best way to come in power. And there is a lot of work to do. They need a new program. They need more young people. They need more females in important positions. But he came into office, and because the government was not doing the best job, he had a good start. It's not more, but not less. And I think he for himself, he's really happy at the moment because he's stable, he's stabilized, and he's not seen as the loser he was. When you come to office and have quick wins, this is the best what can happen to a new party leader. And then, of course, he knows this is just the beginning, and he has to do the real job. And the real job is to reorganize the party also from the program. When you're in government, you don't need a perfect program. You just need to do a good job in office. But as an opposition, to win the next elections, you need better ideas. You need smarter ideas. You need better persons, and this is his real job. And this job just has started. He's not done at all with it.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked at length about the Social Democrats. We've talked a little bit now about the Christian Democrats, and we touched earlier on the other coalition partners, the Greens and the Free Democrats. The Greens really seem to be performing very, very well. The Free Democrats, not as much. I mean, this was true in the state elections, but also at the national level, with Christian Lindner sort of struggling in his role as finance minister. Can you talk a little bit about how the Free Democrats are faring at the moment, and what we might expect from them?
Yeah, I don't see Lindner struggling too much, but it's just a difficult political situation for a finance minister. Mm-hmm. We have a huge health crisis. The whole German economy under the lockdown needed huge amounts of state help. We have now, the government now wants to organize, I said, $100 billion for the army. And who has to pay it? The finance minister. And so he has to open his pockets or his wallet every 5 minutes. We have a historical high of new debts this year. And financially, all the last finance ministers had an ausgeglichener Haushalt. Can you please translate?
A balanced budget.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Germany, this was a sign for the finance minister is doing a good job. Mm-hmm. And now we have, and of course, Christian Lindner wanted to follow that line. He wants to follow that line. Now we have a difficult situation. So I wouldn't say he's struggling, but he has his post at the moment is a really heavy one, and so he's not seen as the winner at the moment. But I think he's not the problem for the FDP. The Corona course was a little bit because the liberals were the first to say, let's throw away the borders, let's open everything up. And this course wasn't that course the Germans liked too much. We had a little bit. Most of the people had, you know, we have this is an old population, and a lot of people had fears to become ill, to die, and so this course wasn't the most famous one. Having said that, the liberals in the last elections have huge gain from young people. 30% of the young people voted for them, and they at the same time have huge losses at the elder generation. So they have problems, and they lost in total votes, but I see also good signs for them, and I think this story isn't over. So to regroup within the younger generation is also a good sign, I would think.
So maybe lastly, in terms of German politics, on the periphery, sort of the more populist parties on the left, the Linkspartei, and on the right, AfD, Alternative for Germany, both seem to be losing ground and losing traction, with a concentration in the middle, right? With the Social Democrats, the Christian Democrats, the Greens, and the Free Democrats. But the Linkspartei and the AfD are losing ground. Should we keep watching them, or do you think that their sort of days are over and that they'll become more and more sort of nominal as time goes on?
At the moment, you don't need to look at the Linke, because they are really below recognition. Nobody's voting for them anymore. They have one scandal after the other, and I had the talk show before the election in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I think I was asking the leader of the Linke, why are you not acting? You're like, you know, there's the waterfall. You are 10 meters in the river before the waterfall. Why are you not swimming?
Yeah.
You're waiting. You know what's going to happen, and do you want to act when you are down the waterfall? But so they don't have a clue how to solve this situation, and they don't have any ideas at the moment. It's really tragic. They will vote new party leaders in summer, but they are voted out of every parliament, and they are losing the support of their voters. So I wouldn't take a close look at them at the moment. And the AfD, you know, this was a lot of countries were I know are looking at the AfD, of course, because there's the rise of a right-wing party in Germany is always a thing to look at. But now it was the first election where the AfD was voted out of the parliament again. So the story of the success is really over. They lost the last 9 elections in a row. I think in the west of Germany, they are playing not an important role at the moment, but on the east they are. And at the east they have some radical, really radical right extremist candidates. And if they will take over the whole party, we really have to look at them. The Verfassungsschutz also has to look at them. This is an open question at the moment. This question will be answered in June, where they have an assembly where they vote their next party leaders. And so the story of the success is over, but we have to keep a close eye on them.
So let me just ask you one final question, which comes from one of our viewers, and it sort of widens the aperture completely, because we go from domestic German politics to international affairs. And one of our viewers writes, President Biden made news today, at least here in the United States, for responding to a question during his trip to Asia saying that the United States would respond militarily if China attacked Taiwan. Is this story getting attention in Germany, or is anything related to China still in the background, given everything with Ukraine at the moment?
No, we all saw this news today, and Olaf Scholz is in Africa these days. He left Germany yesterday in the morning. He will come back on Wednesday, I think. I don't know if we will answer that news from abroad, but of course everybody is looking out for his reaction on it, because as I was stating out, we are already struggling with his course towards Ukraine. So it's a good question. Thank you for it. But it's a good question, an open question for us all, what he's saying about Taiwan. And why is it so difficult for us? And why do we want to know about it? But because at the moment, we don't have enough capacities from the Bundeswehr to defend our homeland from a Russian invasion. We don't have enough weapons to give to our NATO partners in the east, like Poland, Slovakia, and so on. And Olaf Scholz is saying we do not have even enough weapons to give to the Ukraine. So how should we support or defend Taiwan? So this is an issue which has really to be addressed and to be discussed, and I'm also looking very much forward for Olaf Scholz's answer on that.
Mm-hmm. So maybe lastly, particularly since we've talked a little bit about Olaf Scholz throughout our conversation today, and as you mentioned, he's in Africa at the moment, three days, 3 countries. There's been some criticism about the fact that he has not yet visited Ukraine, despite the fact that other national leaders have, and despite the fact that other members of his cabinet have. There seems to be some mounting pressure for him to visit Ukraine. Has there been criticism of his going to Africa, which of course is also important in light of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, because he has not been to Kyiv yet?
Yeah, but for me, it's there is criticism, but I would see it as different topics. The first topic is the question of not going to the Ukraine. I think this is really a problem. I think Olaf Scholz lost the momentum. He is now feeling that he's too late. He has nothing to offer. And we hear nobody wants to go with him from important European leaders. So he failed to choose the right time, and now he's not coming out. He doesn't see a way out of this of the situation. On the other hand, he's new in office. He has to make some Begrüßungsbesuche. Can you help me again?
Yeah, some first visits in his role as a chancellor. I mean, some
absolutely. So this is the normal. Yeah. This is the normal job of a chancellor, to go to every world region, to say hello, to solve problems, to make business. This I see it under. If you see it from that point of view, you cannot connect Ukraine and Africa at the moment. So I wouldn't criticize him about going to Africa. Some newspapers do it, but I think this is too much.
Well, I think particularly since the other big story that people have been talking about is the potential food crisis that is coming, and it's already here. And this relates, of course, particularly to the war in Ukraine, and it's countries in Africa that are going to be especially hard hit by the food crisis as time goes on. So it seems to me that it's all related, and it makes sense for him to be in Africa, not only related to the food crisis, but also the pandemic. Vaccine diplomacy is playing a role there as well.
Buying gas.
Yeah. And yes,
buying gas to become independent from Russia is also a key momentum for Germany at the moment, and this is also a reason to go to Africa.
Well, Matthias, thank you again for taking time to talk with us. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I hope very much that in a few months we're able to continue the conversation again. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I know that our Kaffeepause viewers like to hear from you as well.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the questions, and thank you for your time.
Take care. Tschüss, Matthias.
Bye-bye.